This conference will now be recorded.
County Attorney General discussion.
There's a couple of things on the agenda that might have some relevance to me, and I'll wait till then unless somebody.
Hmm.
we got it for 5 years running. So we're pretty established about that. You can see at the bottom of that page what our accomplishments or what we did to receive that award. Also on the first page, you'll see the board members and the staff. If you open up to the second page, we go over the general fund expenditures. I'm not gonna read them all off at the same time because you guys got a full agenda on there. But basically, the biggest thing that we want to point out is if you go to the bottom, our tax asking, we can see we were budgeted for 994,000. We ended up coming in at 828. So it was 166 below what we had budgeted for tax asking. So we like to think that we're doing our best to make sure we're watching the county taxpayers on our end for our stuff. On the recycling center side, on the right, again, not going to go through all the numbers. You guys can see those in front of you. Our task asking for the recycling center when we started the year or requested was 101. We ended up at 85, so that was 16,000 below what our tax asking was or what we had projected. So again, watching our pennies there. And then the other thing that we got on there is Chelsea was awarded the Hunter Education Program Instructor of the Year, which is something that they don't just hand out. It has to go to someone who's been dedicated to that type of thing. So we're really excited for her and her honor that she was awarded that this year. And then you can see the number of programs that was put on this year, 321 total programs with 6,600 participants, which is one of the bigger ones in the state on the number of participants and programs that we're doing. And on the last page is all the wildlife areas as of the end of fiscal year 2024. So the new area is not on there. Again, we just closed on that last week, but that'll be on next year's report, stuff like that. Any questions on the annual report?
How are you coming on the ash tree? Do you have a lot more to do?
So
Or?
we've got a handful, there's probably about 30 more to take down, that are gonna be in the areas that are issues. We're not going into the wildlife areas that are just hunting areas. There'll be habitat, because a dead tree is good for woodpeckers, bugs, that sort of stuff. So we won't affect those, but if they're in high areas that could cause problems or be a safety concern, then we're taking care of those. So we got about 30 more to take care of this winter, and we'll knock those out once the ground's solid. So that'll probably be around January. Other questions?
Thank you for what you do.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Motion to approve the annual report?
Do you have a motion?
I don't think you need a motion. We just have to present one each year.
Motion on number 6.
Oh, it says motion, but.
Oh, okay.
Up to you, you can do
Do we
one.
need a motion? That should say notes.
No.
Oh.
Thank you.
Yep.
County engineer update.
Good morning.
Morning.
Not much this morning. I do have a DOT detour agreement. That's for when they're gonna be doing work here in Osage. They want to detour up Foothill and up through St. Ansgar and around. If we could look at that. They've got their estimate on what they're gonna pay us for the road use tax or the fuel tax dollars once they do that, but just a typical agreement for the DOTs for their detour, if we can get that approved. Looking at estimated to begin March 31st and end in May. I think that's the work they're doing on the west side of town here in Osage.
Then we can use a motion to
So moved.
the detour agreement. Motion is our second.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion?
Roll call, Todd,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Cindy, Jim.
Aye. Thank you.
The other agreement I have is for the bridge project on Echo. We've been working on that one for, it seems like over a year now, trying to get the design and stuff done on that one, but it's the federal aid agreement for receiving the funds for that bridge on Echo. Estimated cost is $450,000. I could get that one approved also.
You have a motion to approve the funding agreement for BROS
CO 6670-8J66.
So moved.
The motion is our second.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Roll call, Mark,
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Cindy. Aye. Jim.
Aye.
Doug.
Aye.
Thank you. Another thing I want to remind the board about is that we have our safety action plan workshop Thursday morning down here, if you guys want to go to it. The morning session starts at 8:30 and it's usually done by, I think we've got it allotted to go till about 11:30 or 12, but a lot of times it doesn't take that long. Sheriff, I don't know if you have that on your agenda too, or your schedule, but we've sent out invites in the past. It's always nice to have everybody show up, or at least specifically, I don't know if you had planned on it or not, but or send a representative to this meeting. I don't know if you've gotten the invites or not. We've been sending them out for the last, and we sent them out a couple months ago to get it on everybody's agenda or calendars, but I don't know if we received it or not. I haven't gotten any response from anybody, but anyway, I think kind of an important deal to go through, but if you can't make it, that's fine too, but.
Is there food?
We didn't know. Well, we could provide some donuts, I guess. So, but other than that, we'll have that Thursday and.
Rich, I have it on the calendar, but we'll probably still be in the field.
That's fine. It's it.
So, but if we're not, I'll be there.
It depends on how, everybody's schedules are different. We didn't, in Worth County, we didn't have any board members show up. They were busy too. So it's a tough time of year to get people to come to this stuff with harvest, but they've got 97 counties to go through. And so they try to schedule them when they can get them through. So anyway, just an FYI.
Do they try to do that this time of year?
No, this is just, it's kind of a one-time thing for this program because of the new funding bill that went through a while back. If you don't have a safety action plan, when you apply for SS4A grants, Safe Roads for All, they want you to have a safety action plan. Some counties had created one. Several counties had created safety action plans, but I think most everybody's didn't meet the standards of the federal guidelines. They had a good one for normal things, but so the Service Bureau, when we signed up to an agreement to pay for this, every 97 counties, I think there's 2 that are doing it on their own, signed an agreement to get a safety action plan so we can go after some funding if it's available. And it would be funding for if, when we go through our plan, we see issues such as, maybe we need to restripe all of our roads with 6-inch wide paint versus 4-inch. Well, some counties might not be able to paint very often and they could apply for a grant for safety money to do stuff like that. Or if there's a lot of debris, right-of-way cleaning that needs to be done and they don't have the funding to do that. Some counties are in tougher shape for as far as having obstructions in the right-of-way, trees and things like that. They could apply for grants to do things like that. So, but in order to get the money, you got to have a safety action plan that says, in our safety action plan, it says these are things we need to do, and you can apply for funding for those things. So we may not have a lot, but we'll still have a safety action plan and we'll be ready if we can. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Morgan.
I have a question for the engineer. What is the projected vehicle count for that detour?
I don't know if it says on here or not. Oh, I think it might. Did you guys get your agreement also?
Yeah, he sent me an email yesterday, but then council signed it.
Cars is 28,
28, 23?
28, 23 today.
It says annual average. So. Is your agreement, have you seen yours at all? Does it have any, you guys did it, I guess I don't know how to do that. You guys did.
Yeah, they have a thing on there. I just didn't know for sure I had two different numbers, and the engineer I talked to thought it was around 3,200.
This is their calculation, so this is what
And
they
not
use.
all vehicles are gonna.
With
Right.
trucks, it would be close to that, because the trucks are 360.
The trucks will
The
detour.
truck traffic is gonna be more confusing.
The cars will find their way through town, but
Yeah,
They can be
we have a heavy truck load already.
Yeah.
It's gonna be significant for 2 months.
well, I don't know how long the project's gonna last. They just gave you this big window of March through May. It might take that.
That plan.
Right, yep.
You know, if they're going by my house, and I talked with they've been there several times, and when they do this stretch from Kirkwood to like First Street, 100% of the vehicles will have to take that detour. But once they kind of get past First Street, then they'll start opening it like that stretch.
I just care about the ones that are going under my bedroom. They're nice.
You're gonna get a lot.
Just wanted to be fair.
Have to wait till 9 o'clock for the next two. Resolution setting date of meeting which it is proposed to approve a development agreement with Osage Co-op Elevator, including a tax increment payments 12/27/24.
I'm just wondering, do we, I didn't look at them as far as that. Can we approve that one before we do the other one? I'm just wondering. That's just a question, I'm not really sure.
I don't know that you could either, yeah.
Well, we'll move on to the number 11 then. We got 15 minutes. Discussion possible action on setting a public hearing for the survey ordinance. Did the county attorney have some input on that?
Yeah,
We got an email
so-
last night.
Things in this realm change pretty quickly. As you know, because everything's going on now. So I've made my thoughts known before that on the pipeline, I have some concerns with it as far as safety, insurance issues, and property values, and things like that, and those haven't gone away. And that's on a personal level, as a citizen. As a citizen, I have some concerns also, maybe just the way the utilities board, I think, maybe kind of shoved it through. That may not be fair, that's kind of what I think. But now I'm gonna switch gears and probably, what's the word, put some sand in the greaser of some things. So regarding this ordinance, my bottom line conclusion is I probably would hold off and not pass it now or do anything. Here's what I think. So last week, I think it was last week, pretty sure it was. There was a decision out of Fort County regarding their windmill ordinance. Now, that's not the same as pipeline ordinance. I get it. The issues that have been litigated are not necessarily the same, but they're kind of similar. Rather, I should say they're going to become similar, I suspect. And one of the issues, and of course that Worth County ordinance, it might be appealed. I have no idea whether it will be or it won't be. But for now, it stands. Although district court opinions generally aren't binding on any other judge or any other court. So what exactly how binding it is, I mean, it's not particularly binding on anything, but it does kind of give some insight into how these things are approached. And so one of the big issues that, and I don't really like speaking for judges, especially one that's just right over in Mason City, when that judge can speak for themselves, but they're not gonna comment on this stuff. But what I take from it is that ordinance over there particularly, and I understand it applies to windmills, but one of the issues was the judge said, look, this thing is so, it is so overreaching that it effectively bans any windmill setup in Worth County. And also, one of the arguments that was made by the company was, hey, this is in effect the county trying to take away a vested right that we had because we've already put time and resources into this process. It's not an unusual argument, it's just one you don't see all the time, but it was a good one. Anyway, the bottom line is the judge said this ordinance is gone. It was too overreaching, and she said Worth County acted in bad faith. Now, bad faith in a legal sense doesn't necessarily have the same sense that it does like when you and I are talking. When I say in common language, when we talk somebody acted in bad faith, that generally means we're saying, oh man, you're a fraud or you're deceptive or something. That isn't necessarily what it means in the legal world. So it's not like somebody was saying Worth County acted fraud. It's just, it's kind of a way of saying they acted heavy-handed. So how does that apply to here? It applies here a little bit. Like I said, this just came out last week, but there's a certain similarity because it looks like this ordinance here that's under consideration would effectively make it very difficult to get any survey done at all in Mitchell County. That starts to make me think, okay, that's starting to strike similar to what the judge was talking about in that other opinion. So that causes me some concern. All that might be a little bit of an aside. Here's kind of the main issue. Last week, Mark knows because I think Mark came Mark came and reminded me and said, I think it was last Tuesday, and said, hey, oral arguments are tonight in a case involving Summit and the Iowa Code section 479B.15. And I said, yeah, I didn't know that was tonight. And it was broadcast. I mean, it was live. I didn't watch it live. I tried to watch it the next day. I couldn't get the sound to work and all that. Come to find out, I think they were having issues and the sound problem was on there because if you waited a little while, it came back. Anyway, I did watch it. I did go back and watch it, and I read some of the findings, and and it's impossible to boil things down into just a couple minutes, but in that case, the landowner, so in that case in Hardin County, the landowner lost, okay? In essence, the landowner was saying, hey, you surveyors can't come on my property. You can't come on my property. This statute, which is the statute that we're all talking about, that's 479B.15, when it comes to surveys, that's where all this stems from. All of it. This ordinance under consideration, all of it stems from that statute, okay? So, well, and there's 0.16 is also pertinent, but 0.15 is kind of what deals with the survey. So the district court in Hardin County said, I think it was Hardin County, said, landowner, you cannot interfere. Just can't. Statute's there, it's valid, can't interfere. And the landowner then, and I think the court issued like an injunction against the landowner, an injunction to say, okay, you are enjoined or stopped from interfering with this process. Anyway, it ended up being taken up on appeal. That's what was argued, okay? So you've got the landowner that is saying this statute, 0.15, I'm just going to abbreviate, I don't want to say the whole thing all the time. 0.15, that landowner is saying this is, it's unconstitutional. And he was arguing that it's, and I love this stuff. I mean, I could spend a week on this stuff, but my staff, Becky, gets mad because I don't get anything else done. But anyway, I do enjoy it. So that landowner his argument was, okay, this 0.15 is facially unconstitutional. It's gotta go. It's gone completely. Now, it's a little odd, and I'm not that attorney, and this attorney litigates this stuff all the time. He's very, very good at it. But just as an observer, I kind of think, so you're asking the court to declare it facially unconstitutional, which means just throw it out completely in its entirety, as opposed to unconstitutional as applied, which is most of the time what people ask for. If they're asking for a statute to be declared unconstitutional, they're saying it's unconstitutional as applied, meaning the way you're applying it to me is unconstitutional. The difference is if a court declares something unconstitutional as applied, they'll just say it doesn't apply in this situation. They'll save the statute, but just say it doesn't apply in these circumstances. It's not that often that a court declares something facially invalid, saying this statute is no good, period. In fact, you can bring a challenge on that before it even affects anybody. You're actually asking a court ahead of time to just say, don't waste anybody's time. This thing is facially unconstitutional on its face. It's never going to be any good in any situation. So declare this unconstitutional. That is what that attorney that argued for the landowner is arguing, is that this thing is facially unconstitutional. I suppose he had good reason for doing that, probably because he didn't think he had a very good argument to argue that it's unconstitutional as applied. The long and short of it is, I kind of got the essence, and I don't know what the Iowa Supreme Court's going to do. I can't predict anything. And you can't always tell by the way an argument goes what's going to happen, because sometimes they pick things out. I may talk to Todd, think he has a wonderful argument, but I might start picking it apart here, there, and everything else just because I want him to prove his point, right? So sometimes courts will do that. So you can't necessarily tell what they think, but it kind of seemed to me that I'm going to be a little, frankly, and this is kind of different than what I thought before. But when I dug into the case more, then I kind of became more informed, I guess, of what was going on. I think it would be probably a little unlikely that the court's going to declare that statute facially unconstitutional. They might. I have no idea, no way of knowing. But it didn't seem to really be going in that direction, I thought. The point is, whatever happens in that case is probably going to decide all these issues. Now, when I say what happens in that case, the Iowa Supreme Court, they may decide that case, or well, they will decide it. And I don't know, you don't know how they'll decide it, right? They may decide it on very narrow grounds, which means sometimes they'll answer one question that just gets rid of the case, but leaves everything else out in the open. And then sometimes they really get to the meat of the issue and address the whole thing. Here, they're probably going to have to get to the meat of the issue and say up or down on that statute. What happens from there? Somebody might try to take it to the federal courts, which you can do. There's a constitutional right involved. I have no idea whether that'll happen. But it could. And so it seems to me, and because like I said, it's hard to predict for sure because you don't know exactly how narrow or wide the court's going to be when they rule. But it would almost seem to me that this 0.15 statute is going to rise or fall with this case, regardless of how far it goes. And I think there's also a case in the 8th Circuit going on that ultimately is going to be the federal courts. If they weigh in, they're going to decide it. But anyway, it seems like the issue that ordinance tries to address, it does, once you look at it a little bit more, it's like, and I'll tell you how I thought about this. And I won't go on forever here, but I kind of got to work through this I've thought about it all before, but I got to say what I think is important. Jim had some concerns that he shared with me. He can talk about those himself. One of those concerns was, it seems like this almost makes it very hard for any surveyor to do any kind of survey at all. I hadn't thought about that. When I was looking at the statute, I was looking at it from a completely different perspective, a legal perspective, not really a practical perspective.
It's 9 o'clock, we'll have to come back to this.
All right, that's fine.
Take a break. Nine o'clock, open a public hearing at 9 o'clock. Any oral or written comments received?
I had none.
None.
I did, yeah. In favor of this, yes.
This is on the urban renewal.
Oh, on the urban renewal, sorry. Oh, no, I didn't have anything on that. Okay, sorry.
I had no. I had none.
I had none.
None. No comments, so we'll close the public hearing at 9:01. And now we'll move on to a resolution approved by Urban Renewal Plan Amendment of Mitchell County Urban Renewal Area, Resolution 1246-24.
I move to approve resolution 1246-24.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
A second, any other discussion?
Roll call, Todd,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Cindy, Aye. Mike,
Aye.
Mark.
Aye. Alrighty. And then we move on to resolution setting a date of meeting at which it's proposed to approve the development agreement with Osage Co-op Elevator, including tax increment payments, 1247-24.
I'll move to make that motion.
And motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
Roll call, Cindy, Mark,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
Mike,
All right.
Jim.
Aye.
All right. Now we can go back to the discussion and possible action on setting a public hearing for survey ordinance.
I'll finish this up.
Yes.
Because I
Yeah.
get, like I said, I like this stuff, so. But anyway, long story of it is, so I got, Jim brought up, he said, this seems to affect a lot of surveyors. It's gonna make it hard to get a survey. And I thought, I never looked at it from that perspective. It's a very practical point. I was looking at it from a very legal point. I got to reading it and I thought, it does maybe kind of do that. And I thought, well, and then that kind of spurred me on and I thought, well, it sounds like maybe kind of the argument, the point that he was trying to make, I'm not saying Jim's right or wrong, but I just say it got my thing, is that, wow, this statute could be over, or this ordinance could be overbroad. I'm thinking, wow. And then that kind of got me going back to the Worth County ordinance. I'm like, might be kind of a problem. So there's just, bottom line is, if from a legal perspective, no, as much as one might say, man, I would love something to stop those damn surveys from happening. That's not a lost cause. Had conversations with the sheriff and stuff about maybe how to handle that. It's kind of a separate thing. From a legal perspective for this ordinance, I would probably hold off on it. I just wouldn't do anything. I'm not saying you can't ever do anything. I'm saying this thing's gonna be decided. In one of these cases, it's gonna be decided. It isn't gonna have anything to do with you guys. I mean, whatever happens might very well answer the question. It might take a while to get there, but it's gonna answer the question. So by stepping into these waters, it might be, you don't need to. Now, if you do pass it, you have to count on maybe you might get sued. I have said before, I agree with this, you cannot live your life worrying about whether you're gonna get sued all the time anyway, otherwise none of us would ever do anything. On the other hand, you can't totally discount prospect of getting sued, right? I mean, it's like, well, I mean, you know, I mean, it matters, right? If I can avoid it, I prefer to. And then you have to evaluate, well, how good is my case, right? Well, in this case, you know, it's easy for me on the one hand to say, this is principle, man, practicality be damned, go forward. Problem with that is, the practical matter is, you've got 12,000 or so citizens in Mitchell County, and it's like, well, you do have to think about whether the county's gonna get sued and how much it's gonna cost. Not necessarily if there's a judgment, but to defend. You know, if somebody brings an action against you, it's gonna cost a lot of money for an attorney to defend this case. That wouldn't be something I would do, because that's just not, I do litigation, but that's not I mean, that'd be like asking a cardiologist to go and do brain surgery, just say, no, I'm not gonna do that. You would need somebody that does this. I don't know whether insurance would pay it. I've heard it said before, well, that's what insurance is for. And I've always kind of, and I haven't read the policy, I haven't talked to anybody with the insurance company, but I do know, it seems to me, I don't know that this would be a situation, I don't know if this is a situation where insurance company would pay. I don't know. I mean, it's not like a road grader operator negligent causes a wreck. It's not like a dam burst because of negligence. I don't know if this is something an insurance company would pay. I don't know if they'd pay a judgment, but also just as importantly, I don't know whether they would pay the cost of the defense. You know, people sometimes are under that impression, and I don't know if they would. I mean, it could end up being hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend this thing, and I don't know that insurance would pay. Now, if somebody's talked to the insurance company said, oh yeah, we will, I'd get it right, by somebody other than an agent. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Rambled on there for a while, can't help it, it takes me a while to get.
Well, my question is, conservation told Summit that they can't survey on that Nelson ground. Isn't that gonna be a lawsuit then?
Wow,
Nobody got upset when they had their.
What I think on those cases now, it's going to get to a point where you're, and maybe already has, where, like I said, you're going to have these surveyors wanting to do this stuff. Now, passing this ordinance, whether you pass it or not, it's going to have absolutely no effect on any of that. If this ordinance is passed, which I mean, I see the value in it, but if it's passed, it really isn't going to apply until all this litigation's done, because all that's going to happen is there's going to be an injunction put in place, so if the surveys are going to happen or not happen, and it's not going to have a damn thing to do with whether that ordinance is in place, because even if it's passed, then what's going to happen, because this is just the way the process works, Summit's going to go and they're going to apply to a court, and they're going to say, look, Mitchell County may win, but for now, we got this state statute that trumps their ordinance. So for now, Judge, you just got to ignore that ordinance, and it all shake out in the end. That's what would happen. See, so this ordinance wouldn't stop anything. It wouldn't really have any effect until after all this is done. What individual landowners, and this is kind of a separate topic, and I've communicated with the sheriff about it before. I don't remember exactly what we decided. I've got it all written down, but I'm pretty sure I advised Summit a while back that, hey, look, if you guys are going to do, if you're going to want to do surveys and somebody doesn't want it, you may be best off to try and go to court and get that ordered, because you may meet some resistance when you go out to try to do the survey. Because another open question is, at the end of all this, somebody shows up and says, I'm gonna do a survey, or I'm here, I'm giving you my notice, whatever, I'm gonna do it whenever. Then you're faced with the practical question. It's like, okay, what do I do now? I don't want to do a damn survey. I can't wait until this litigation's over. They're here now. What am I supposed to do now? Well, what I thought would be best is that the survey companies, I'm pretty sure I've advised them of this, but I'm not sure they ever really said back what they thought about it. Try to head off those problems by saying, look, if you're getting resistance from somebody, stay away. If you think you got to go to court, get your injunction to go on, do that, wait for a court order. Court order comes through, then the landowner is like, yeah, you better let him on. Unless you're willing to go to jail, which, you know, some people might be. If you get a surveyor, and this has happened in another county, kind of, you get a surveyor comes on that says, well, I know I'm doing it. You know, I'm doing it. You'd be damned. You know, the law says, well, other counties have charged them with trespass. I know that there's a code section that says it's not a trespass, but there's another code section that deals with that. It's kind of a trespass, but it's a different statute. So the long and short of it is, the pipeline company would probably be best to, when somebody says, don't come on my property, they should probably maybe go get a court order, or else, I don't know, they may find themselves in a jail cell.
Mr. Horgan.
For 24 hours.
Another question.
Yeah.
Sounds to me like the laws and the rules have been written very slanted towards the pipeline company. Now we got people living around here. Most people knock on your door before they come in your house, or wait until they're invited onto the property, or at least know you're going to be on the property. I can't imagine what kind of headache it's gonna cause that man over there on all this, what's going on. No, so if that ordinance that you're considering is gonna cause issues, why can't Dutchess County craft an ordinance that says, be polite in our county?
Well,
Because I know it's law.
you might.
I know you're dealing with big people.
Yeah, and
Why should we be terrified by the state government? They wrote the rules so that they slanted towards the pipeline.
I'm not telling you to be. I'm just laying out what the ramifications are, and then policymakers have to decide what they're gonna do. From a legal perspective, I'm saying, I don't need to pass the ordinance. I mean, it's gonna shake out one way or the other. I'll be honest with you, it's a foregone conclusion in my mind. It's like, yeah, this is all written slanted in favor of them. Yeah, of course it is. We don't exist in a world anymore where people are elected to office and they go down to Des Moines and to the legislature and they write statutes and they meet with people and they deliberate. The days of Abraham Lincoln are gone. What happens now is lobbyists, they go to the lawmakers, and this sounds cynical, but this is the way it works. At least the way I've seen it work. Maybe it doesn't always work that way, but the way I've seen it work is, and this isn't a legal thing, this is more of a practical observation. People can push back on me, some would say I'm wrong, maybe they're right, I don't think so. Everybody runs for office on this platform of, I'm gonna go down and I'm gonna do this. And they may mean it. Problem is they get out there and then it's just like, okay, dude, you're a spoke in this wheel and this wheel's turning. You either get on board and do what we do, or we're just gonna throw you aside. And so you get down there as a legislator, and you either get the program or you really don't have any power. Most of them get with the program, right? That's why all this stuff gets passed. Most of them get with the program and they'll say, okay, what's the program's whatever the lobbyists say that it is. So the lobbyists, they, the fact of the matter is they write statutes. They have lawyers, they write statutes. They present it to the legislature and they say, this is what we want. Well, why should we do what you want? Well, because I fund your campaign. Okay, so that's how statutes are written. These statutes aren't written by people getting together in a room and saying, we're citizens, we all look, it ought to be that way. But this is written by, you just have opposing forces. Once in a while, you have these forces come out on top. Once in a while, you have these forces come out on top. If, I gotta wrap this up. If somebody's really serious about this issue, what you would do. I've heard somebody say before that the citizens have an attorney on this stuff. What you would do, in my opinion, and the attorney may say, no, that's not what you do. If you want to challenge this stuff, then somebody, an attorney who specializes in this wouldn't be cheap. So it'd be best if you could band with other companies or other counties to share the cost. When somebody challenges a statute or whether it be a state or a federal statute, okay, what they're doing, and they're challenging it on a constitutional basis, and you've seen this lately with pro-life advocates and just different advocates. So, that was an issue. I don't want to get political, but like the life issue, that was decided by the Supreme Court, right? It's like, that's done. We're not considering it anymore. Well, what happened is you got the other people, other legislatures said, you know what, just because they said this doesn't mean they'll say it again, so we're going to challenge this, right? We're going to challenge, we know that the U.S. Supreme Court said this, but we're going to challenge it. What they do is they write statutes then that are very, very narrowly tailored for one specific purpose. That purpose is so they get sued, kind of, right? These, like some of these states, they'll write statutes that are in direct contradiction to what the Supreme Court has said. They write them with very narrowly defined parameters with the intent of getting before the U.S. Supreme Court. And they write it such that they try to gauge who's on the court, what do they think. They write those statutes very narrowly so that it gets to the U.S. Supreme Court and then the U.S. Supreme Court judges it or decides it based on that very narrow issue. In other words, it's a statute that's written, that's designed to steer the justices a certain way. That's how this is done. If that's what you want to do, then what counties need to do is they got to get with their attorneys and say, this is what we want to do.
The question was, is it possible for the county to write a statute that says, be polite when you're in Mitchell County?
Yeah, I just told you how to do it.
Okay.
But it's going to be best, it's going to cost money, and it's probably best to team up with other counties.
I want to speak just briefly in regards to, Aaron mentioned my name that I went and talked with him, so I didn't talk with him about the legal part of this, I talked with him about the practicality of the ordinance, of this proposed ordinance. And personally, I think this is a very bad document. I'll just say it that way. It says surveying of certain parcels, but it's going to affect all surveying that goes in Mitchell County. I know we have been talking about pipelines and Summit and everything in this conversation so far, but the word Summit and the word pipeline and the word carbon is not in this document at all. This is all surveys that are going to happen in Mitchell County. And so I'll use an example. There's three things that concern me about this document. I'll use an example as one. These tables are property that, this is my ground, that's Sydney's ground. I'm planting trees on her property. She says, get your trees off my property. I said, no, I think that's my property. No, get your trees off my property. She hires a surveyor to end up either finding a point that is here buried or to establish a point. That's what surveyors do. They have to be on my property in order to do their work. I say, no, you're not gonna be on my property. So, okay, the surveyor has to buy $1,000 bond in order to do that survey. If he can't do all the points in regards to this, he might have to go to Todd's property. We all kind of live in the same area. Todd says, no, you're not gonna be on my property. Gotta buy $1,000 bond in order to access Todd's property. Legally, he can be on the property, but he has to buy $1,000 bond, is what this says. Who's gonna pay for those $1,000 bonds? She's gonna pay for it. It's gonna go to the price of what it costs to survey the property. That's bad. That's just not right. It's not how it should be done. I wondered if I had these concerns, and I reached out to a surveyor that does a lot of survey work in Mitchell County. I've worked with a lot of the surveyors when I was in the engineer's office, so I know these people. I said, am I on base with this, these concerns I've got, or what? I gave all of you a copy of that letter, that email he replied back to me. I'm not off base on this. He says it's gonna severely affect surveys in Mitchell County the way this is wrote. This proposed ordinance says they need to buy a $10 million liability insurance. They have to have $10 million liability insurance coverage. That is ridiculously excessive to survey her property. It's ridiculous. The other part of this is, on this document, it references county engineer. County engineer will issue the permits. The county engineer is gonna monitor the permits. The county engineer is gonna be involved as far as if there's problems with the permits, as far as what's going on. The county's engineer's job is to work with the secondary road department. The county engineer works with what's in the right of ways between the fence lines, but as far as private surveys, the code says what goes to fund the secondary road department is for the secondary road system, not for private surveys. So this is a bad document. I'll just say it that way. That's what I want to talk to Darren about. I do not support it.
Anybody else have any questions?
Can it
Comments?
be made specific to the CO2 pipeline?
Good, yes.
That would, or could there be a moratorium on pipelines going through until this is settled at the state? A moratorium in Mitchell County, if that's all we can do?
I think where we're at, I guess the best way to say it, the arguments that need to be made are already being made. I don't know whether who's gonna win, who's gonna lose, but the argument's already being made. In other words, those issues are already in litigation, which I think means if you pass an ordinance now, I don't think it's probably gonna have any effect until all this shakes out. That's what I'm saying, just from a legal perspective. I don't think, because if you try to apply it, then what's probably gonna happen is Summit would go to court, get an injunction and saying, we don't care about the ordinance. It might be valid when all this shakes out. It isn't valid right now, state law. So you gotta, you stay, it's called state, you stay the statute, you stay the application. Of course, sometimes we'll do that, right? They'll say, okay, I'm gonna declare this one way, but okay, it's gotta work its way through the court, so what I'm saying now really doesn't matter that much. It's kind of the same with this ordinance. I think what would happen is somebody would just get an injunction and the statute would just be in a state of theory. I'm just not sure it's necessary, I guess what I'm saying. This is all gonna shake out. It may not shake out the way people want it, but it's gonna shake out.
I've got an insurance meeting this week and they're gonna talk quite a bit on the pipeline. And we can wait to them, but if you put Summit in this ordinance, won't that be a discrimination?
That would be if you started getting very, very narrow to certain,
I mean, they're gonna say we're picking on them.
yeah, if you start getting very narrow, that's gonna be a problem. Statutes can be overbroad, they can also be too narrow.
So maybe put hazardous liquid pipeline instead.
You could do that instead of naming a company.
Does that affect any current gas pipelines that might need to relocate or not?
Yeah,
If they had the survey, I'm
It
sure.
probably would.
Or you could call
Probably.
it the super critical or any others of those.
But hazardous would be.
Hazardous covers other things, I think, but the CO2 part would be different.
Sure.
I'm very sympathetic to the concerns. As a legal matter, I don't know what you're gonna do here if you pass something. You're gonna matter.
I guess the other concern is Summit's already knocking on doors, wanting to do these surveys. You know, Larry was here 2 weeks ago and had gotten a letter. And on the other side of us, we've gotten a letter, the conservation got the notice. So they're already starting.
Yes, sir.
My major concern about this, I don't want it, it's too close to my house. But on the survey part of it, at the very least, is there some way that we can tell them that they have to tell us when they're on there?
Here's
It says it in there.
Here's what I may not care what I think, but here's what I can do. And this is, I can get a hold, I'm not gonna stand up, because then I talk longer, so I'm gonna sit down. I can notify, and I think I did this before, but I'm going to do it again and maybe reach out to some different people to tell them, hey, and I don't want to say exactly here how I'm going to say it because I got to work very carefully, but yeah, I can reach out to them and say, we want you guys to do this. If you don't, it's gonna be trouble. I can do that. They may not listen to me, but I can do it.
That's my only point, David and Goliath, let's face it. And the survey is just a small part of it, but it's a start. The idea that they can say, I'm gonna be there in the next 10 days. I'm sorry, that don't cut it with me. I'm representing my landlord, my relative on that property, and I wanna make sure it's done right. And what they're doing, I don't know what they do when they survey. Are they gonna take out 10 pounds of soil? I don't know.
I think we all got a email yesterday from Summit, from Kylie, and it says, as mentioned in my previous email, we'll try our best to set a date and time that landowners are agreeable to before survey takes place. It is important to note that oppositions are openly advising landowners to ignore Summit carbon system. And when survey is requested, after 10 days, letter is sent and Summit shows up for survey to call the sheriff's office. Again, we'll try our best to work with everyone along the route. That was yesterday.
And so what did it say about showing up?
I think the showing up part was when people landowners are ignoring Summit when they try and contact you. It says, Kylie, are you on?
She was.
Yes, yep, I'm on.
Okay. The little part in here, it says that oppositions are openly advising landowners to ignore Summit carbon. Is that being done?
Yeah, that's something I've heard in multiple meetings. We recently had our informational meetings, and that was something that people got up and advised landowners to do. If they said if you don't want Summit to come out and survey, just ignore the certified mail, ignore Summit Carbon Solutions, and then call the sheriff's office when they show up for survey. Because the way the law works is once we send out that 10-day letter, and again, we're going to try, like, Deb mentioned it earlier, we're already knocking on doors, trying to get that survey permission and work with landowners on a date and time to do that survey. Obviously, right now, not a lot of surveys being done because it's harvest. But we are already reaching out to landowners to try to work with them to get a date and time. We'll continue to do that. But there does come a point where the law would let us send out that 10-day letter that would be sent via restricted certified mail. And then after those 10 days, we can come on the property without landowner notification. Obviously, aside from that 10-day letter, that is not something that we want to do. We want to work with landowners and find a date and time that works for them. But like I said, if they're ignoring us and making every attempt they can to not receive that letter and not talk to us, we can't really give them a date and time, if that makes sense.
So let me ask this. Why wouldn't it be better for Summit, I'm Aaron Murphy, the county attorney, why wouldn't it be better for Summit then, rather than, if they're not getting any cooperation from a landowner in their view, it might be best for Summit at that point to try and get a court order to allow it, rather than just going on the property.
Yeah, and that's something that I did. I actually just asked when you were talking about that, because I've heard that in different counties. I know that makes it easier for the sheriff's office. We will get a court order in certain circumstances. We're always going to have that 10-day letter with us when we come on the property. If we know, every landowner is different. And if we know there are going to be issues, we will bring that court order with us. In certain circumstances.
I indicated earlier that I would say something to the pipeline company, and again, I'll just say it to you now, send me an email. Maybe it might be best to really try and work with the landowner, get an agreement as to when it's going to be and what the terms are and so on. And if you do not get that agreement, the most prudent strategy might be to just get that court order. Don't just send somebody out there, because they don't know what they're going to run into.
Yeah, and I agree. I understand where you're coming from. And like I said, if we know there's going to be an issue, if people haven't been working with us, if they've been ignoring us, or the first time they talked to us, they were very, aggressive or anything like that, we will bring a court order with us. But it's only going to be in those certain circumstances, because obviously you don't need them with every landowner. But like I said, we will have that 10-day letter with us for every survey, is my understanding.
Mr. Beaver, sure.
Yeah, hi Kylie, my name's Greg Beaver, I'm a Mitchell County Sheriff. When I review the language in .15, the code says surveyors may enter, it doesn't say shall. And so anytime I have a landowner tell me that the surveyors are not welcome, you're gonna need a court order, I'm not gonna let you on the property.
Okay, I appreciate that feedback, and I will relay that to our project managers and our construction manager. I'm public relations, county outreach, but I will definitely relay that to them and let them know that that's your stance.
I mean, that's the language that I have to go by, that's what's in the code. The other thing I can say is I've heard from landowners, that when your company has knocked on their door and they've said, I don't want the pipeline, they've said, okay, we'll try and move it. So they've cooperated with the landowner that way. And that the only surveyors that are surveying that's currently being done are those that already have agreed to the survey. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have not started sending out those 10-day letters. So right now we are doing voluntary survey only.
Sure. Okay, so again, just my point is with the language in that code that says may, that doesn't get you on. Shall would get you on. May does not without a court order. So that's a position that my office has taken. Thank you.
Understood. And yep, I will relay that to them.
Thank you for making that clear, Sheriff. That's good information. Appreciate that.
Is there somebody in the legal department you could email me or something so I can tell them what the sheriff just said and what I've said?
Yes, I will. I'll get you a contact.
You've got my email address already, I think.
Yes, sir, I do.
All right.
If you're gonna be meeting with the county's insurance company and, they wanna go under the, in our, environmentally sensitive areas, like, I don't think we should say if, I think say when this pipeline leaks, what is the impact gonna be on the county, sensitive areas? And can at least some kind of environmental impact study for the county-owned sensitive areas be required? Because that's something long-term the county is gonna have to deal with, depending on where those areas are, what people may be affected, what wildlife may be affected. It's not a question of if these leak, it's when they leak, because we know they will leak.
And isn't the Cedar River, that whole area considered a sensitive area? I mean, the water affects all of us. So maybe not just the conservation ground, but any environmentally sensitive area.
That at least it should be, the county should do everything it can do and say our hands are tied, we can't do anything. We are gonna trust that these people are gonna build something that's never, ever gonna leak. I remember Pat Mackin had to deal with that Hanford, Washington, those tanks that my uncle built to hold the nuclear waste that was never gonna leak, that's leaking. It's not a question of if they might leak. We know that they will eventually leak. They'll have maybe some kind of plan in place to shut off valves or whatever, but until they do that, damage is gonna happen, what's gonna be impacted. And the county maybe have some liability, especially on the county-owned lands for the consequences of that. I think that's something we should be talking about with the insurers. How's that gonna affect the county insurance?
These are legitimate points. They are. But with this meeting, we are supposed to stick to the agenda items, and the agenda item is survey. Those are legitimate points, and they can come up with public comments. They can be on the agenda and be discussed, but we have a tendency to always go far away, and it reaches a point where it's just like, let's get back on the topic of the agenda item.
So how long do you think we should wait to put an ordinance in effect?
Frankly, you just need to see what shakes out with what's already going on. Your ordinance is really, it's just not, I just don't think it doesn't need to be put in place. What's gonna happen is gonna happen. I'm not saying anybody's caving in, I'm saying that the wheels are already in motion, so whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. This ordinance isn't gonna matter. I think everybody's heard what the sheriff said. I've communicated with the sheriff. We just communicated with Kaylee. I'll communicate with whatever the contact is and say, this is how we are requesting you to do this. If you don't get cooperation, then you need to get the court order. If that court order comes through, well, then people have to decide what they're gonna do, but as a lawyer, I never advise anybody to violate the court order. So, I mean, if that order comes through, then that's the defense that you have. That's the defense that we have.
All righty then, we'll put it on hold then until we either come up with some more information or another one gets written up maybe.
Can I just say, I hate to ask, but I have to go take water tests here soon, and there's a item on here that specifically discuss me, and I would like to be here for that conversation. Is there any way that we could move that up?
Sure Dan.
Okay, thank you.
Number 15 then. Discussion of planning zoning administrator while on leave. So you're gonna be gone for a little bit, looks like?
I'll be gone for 3 months, 4 weeks.
And
Looking like if I don't go early, the date that I will return will be March 31st.
and I need somebody to answer the phone at that time.
So we're regarding phone calls, I'm going to 100% double check on Friday with Board of Health if they're willing to answer environmental health questions or phone calls. And I would have phone calls obviously redirected to them. But regarding planning and zoning, that's kind of your guys' decision on how you want to handle that.
I called the chair of the Board of Health yesterday and had a conversation with her and mentioned that if it would be possible that, the reception individual for public health, if there was a question in regards to planning and zoning, that number could be used at least so a person could talk to somebody. And they'll talk about this at their board meeting if they do that. It's not that they're making decisions, but at least the person that has a question has somebody that they can contact. And then they would, the way I think is then they would contact a board member, maybe just designated board member. This is something just had to be done. And then the board member is going to have to figure out how to do it. There's also, we had other discussion in regards to ideas, but some of this is relying on their board meeting. So that's what I talked with her about yesterday.
So what happens if somebody comes in and wants a permit?
We have to figure that out.
So in my opinion, permits, especially in the winter, can wait, considering they have 2 years of it. They expire 2 years after the issue date. Most people try and get their permits months in advance. So as long as they have their permit before they start construction, which I hardly ever see anyone start construction on March 31st, they should have enough time. I plan to leave 2 separate notes on my door, one regarding environmental health, one regarding planning and zoning, with very simple verbiage that explains when I'll be back, what the process will be, when permits will be issued. I plan to have an out of office email go out if someone does email me, and I do plan to change my voicemail to let people know that if it is something urgent, then they are more than welcome to call public health and talk to an individual. If not, please leave a voicemail, and I will get back to them when I get back. So I do plan to take necessary steps to at least let people know that if people come in person, they can see those notes on my door. If they choose to email me, at least they have some sort of awareness that I will be gone. And if they choose to call, at least they will have that awareness that I will be gone until at least the 31st of March. So it's not like I'm leaving them in the dark, but if they do want to talk to someone, I'm planning on discussing that on Friday at my Board of Health meeting to see if they would be willing to at least vet those calls.
And that's all good. It is all good. But we can't have your office 100% closed. So we will figure something out in regards to that.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody needs to have something done, they can't wait 3 months until you get back. So that's why we have our concerns about this. And
yeah, no, I
that's why
totally
we're
understand.
discussing this. Yeah.
I have those concerns as well. Like I kind of discussed previously, all of the major things that would have to get done when we went through this the first time were put on hold. So that's my argument with that, is the meetings that, took months and months to plan still had to wait, and people were actually still okay with that. They were fine with waiting. So that's my only argument towards that. But again, I'm going to do whatever you guys decide, because that's how it works.
In the previous planning and zoning, wasn't he part-time and he went away for the winter and was not
No.
even in the office?
That was said, that's not true.
No?
He was 30 hours, but he came in the winter. We have payroll records to show it if anyone wants to see.
I just heard that from.
I just want to clarify that because that's been stated publicly and that's not true.
Well, he helped with other departments throughout the winter.
I mean, he turned in payroll sheets and time sheets, so he was here. Yeah. But he was 30 hours, so I mean, he was coming up, so.
If public health would answer the phone, and I don't know, if one of us kind of get a rundown of what, to try to answer questions, you know, I'd be willing to, if you show me the,
I mean, you're more
Just
than
a-
welcome to read the zoning ordinance, that's gonna tell you everything, but as I've previously stated to the supervisor, our ordinance is very vague and up for interpretation. One person's going to look at it and see one thing, and then another person's gonna look at it and see another thing. That's honestly how practically every ordinance or every state code or every law is, that you just look at it and then one person thinks one thing and then another person thinks another. So it's really hard, especially in that aspect. But the zoning ordinance pretty much tells you everything that you need to know regarding zoning. So,
well, I just feel they need to have somebody to talk to, you know, just gonna leave a voicemail and say, I'll call you back in 3 months, that ain't, you know, real practical in my eyes.
it's not, but, it does kind of come with the territory of being the only person in an office.
Well, I know, that's what I'm saying.
So,
That's what I'm saying, if they answer the phone, people have questions,
yeah,
one of us,
yeah, if public health is willing
somebody to
to,
talk to.
if public health is willing to, you know, at least vet the phone calls, but
And then if it's something they can't answer, pass it on to one of us. I think one of us should
I
take
feel
a
like it
crash.
should be open to whichever supervisor they feel comfortable talking to. Instead of just choosing one supervisor, I don't know if that,
Oh, you mean the people that call in, whoever they're comfortable
Yeah.
talking to?
yep, but I don't know how that would work. So, because again, it's open for interpretation a lot of the time. So one person's gonna have one answer, another person's gonna have another. It's very difficult to figure that aspect out, so.
Well, if
It'll,
somebody has questions about septics or whatever, you know,
that would be through public health.
and they would know the answers.
I would obviously go over that. with
Yeah,
them,
that's what I mean. Somebody needs to, if I'm planning on building a house next spring and I have questions about septic, I'm trying to get my plans together. I wanna know what I can and
Yeah, I
can't
would
do. You know what I mean? It's-
Yeah, I'd give them like a very vague rundown, but I wouldn't be doing like how I did last time of a 2-week training, and
Well,
I wouldn't be doing that.
somebody needs to answer questions, you know.
Yeah, I would make them obviously, like, I still have the cheat sheet that I gave our last individual who took over my office. I can just
Okay.
relay that to them, but.
Okay, yeah.
When it comes to zoning, I mean, that's the environmental health side. I'm sure they will be more than happy to help with that. I can't speak for them, but I'm sure that they would be happy to just at least vet the phone calls. But on the planning and zoning side, that's kind of your guys' area. You would have to
Right.
figure out if you want them to be able to take those phone calls or how that works, since it's two separate entities.
Well, if they took the phone calls and if something they can't answer, pass it on. We would have to. But I still think one of us should get a crash course in what's going on. Kind of have some idea, but I don't know. I guess if I called in and had questions, I wouldn't want to wait 3 months for an answer. That's not good practice.
Well, and I understand that part, but remember, she's gone 3 months. If we can get by the first week, we're down to, you know, I mean, I don't think we can make a decision.
No, but at least you could try to help answer
We might, there might be the first month, nobody hears anything. Now we're down to 2 months.
Yeah.
And I think it'll work out. I think if she talks with public health and somebody has some questions, we'll figure it out.
Would you be available to talk on the phone to?
I would have to go over how I would get compensated with that, with Aaron. I'd have to talk about that. Because being as I'm on federal leave, I would not want to have to, quote unquote, I guess, clock in to take a phone call to then clock out 5 minutes later. I don't know how that compensation would work, so I would have to talk to Aaron about that. I did that with the first time, and I was taking phone calls every single day, multiple times a day, and being postpartum and also having to deal with that was a lot, and I want to be very strict that I don't want to have to do that again.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If you have that many calls, there's gonna be calls again. Yeah.
But you also have to remember the time of the year was completely different.
Yeah.
The time of the year was at the very, very beginning of my super busy season. I don't want to say I'm slow in the winter, but most of the time I plan very, very big projects that I can do behind the scenes. for the winter, to keep busy in my office. This year I was planning on working on the zoning map, but unfortunately I'll be gone, so that's gonna have to wait. But that's a huge project that I can't do during the summer because I'm super busy. But that's why I was receiving that many phone calls, is because it was the busy time of the year. This is completely opposite. This is the slower time of the year.
Is there a way we can contact a neighboring county and you help us out?
We don't have a 28E agreement in place right now with the neighboring county. And I talked to some of the counties that do surround us at my conference this last week, and nobody is really willing right now to revive a 28E unless it's, you know, like absolutely dire to where, you know, someone passes away. That's kind of how they worded it, so.
We worked on it with Worth County with different things. I didn't know if that would be an option to talk to them and see if, you know.
They don't have an environmental health program. I mean, they do, but it's completely, it's through a,
It's contracted out.
yeah, it's contracted,
Contracted out.
so it'd be completely different.
That's Rachel.
So I don't know if it'd work, just an idea. Recorder's office is hiring a part-time person. Could they, for the 3 months, take on a little additional time to answer the phone or check messages and do that? I don't know. Maybe something to talk to Hema about. I know they used to share someone that was like help with the recorder's office and auditor's office. But it might be someone that could help. I don't know.
And that's a thought. That's what we talked about yesterday also, not the recorder's office, but in the term PRN, that's a medical term, but what's PRN, what's the acronym PRN as far as?
Pardon?
PRN for?
As needed.
As needed, okay. Possibly, reaching out to an individual in regards to a PRN basis as needed for the phone calls. It's something that just has to be answered, at least the individual could answer the question. Maybe do something in regards to it, so that was also part of the conversation, so.
She would have to go over her budget, if she has enough.
But it would probably be so limited in the dollar amounts that I mean, yes, that's true.
But she would have to decide how much she'd be willing to give for her budget for.
This is Jessa with Public Health, and I just want to say something. I know this is on our agenda for Friday, but we had talked about this with Amanda our last meeting as well too. We do have no problem taking any environmental health questions here, just depending on if our board is okay with that. I do take lots of phone calls already for environmental health, and try and answer them, but we do have lots of partnerships with other environmental health that I can reach out to if I'm not sure how to answer it. I can reach out, ask them, and they will direct us in the right place that we need to go. So on my end, I feel like as far as environmental health, both 3 months will not be a problem for us. It will just be the planning and zoning that you guys will need to figure that out for, but environmental health should not be a problem. And I do have, like I said, other counterparts that can definitely reach out to, and they will help answer our questions.
Thank you. And as Amanda said, I don't think there's going to be a lot of planning and zoning things happening. Maybe a building permit, maybe if for some reason somebody wanted to do something in March. And you should be able to figure that out. It might not be filled out exactly how you want, but at least things keep moving, so.
Mr. Morgan, you have something?
I was just gonna suggest that you could maybe get hold of NIACOG. They have experts in planning and zoning rules. If you have problems with zoning, they will help you out.
Thank you.
Is there like an actual decision or?
No.
We're not making a decision?
No, we're
It's
just
just discussion.
trying to figure this out.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, I'll think on it for a week, and next week if we need to add it, we can.
Do you know who Worth County contracts with?
I believe we people services.
for the permitting and well testing and things like that.
Do a temporary with something like they do, you know, just might be an option.
We have a separate zoning administrator. It's not full-time.
All right.
Okay, well, we'll go on to discussion possible action on county-owned property in New Haven.
You want to speak on it? Or anything? Do you want to speak on it or anything?
I can't hear very good.
Do you want to speak on the realtor part?
Yeah, I was gonna, what I wanted to do is get a hold of like a realtor to give a fair market value, and I reached out and they said, you know, yeah, maybe let us think about it, whatever, and then I didn't hear anything back, so I figured there's no point in waiting forever. I mean, I don't know, I think nowadays, from what I understand, I think it used to be assessed values for quite a bit below fair market value, but I think now, for the most part, the law is such that your assessed value is supposed to be fair market value or as close as possible, I think, right? And I think most of the time, assessed value is probably a pretty good estimate of fair market value. I don't know that it used to be, but I think it probably is now, so.
I think it's on the low end, yeah, but when you look at things, but still, yeah.
The cemetery board said they would pay the fair market value. It's assessed online, 4,300.
Did they make an offer, Cindy?
Yeah, I forgot to print it out. That's exactly what it said in the email, so. And Terry is online, if you want to ask him any questions. He is one of the cemetery board members. Do we have to make a public hearing?
Yeah, and so I think I would like to reach out maybe to the cemetery and talk about, you know, a couple of things, a couple of caveats, right? That what my job. So what I'm saying is maybe don't, well, yeah, you have to have a hearing. I have to prepare paperwork. It's not particularly complicated. And then we set a hearing. But maybe not set it, maybe don't set it right now.
Okay.
Let me get the paperwork together. I've already got pulled out yesterday and go from there.
So there's no action we can take today?
Well, I mean, I suppose you could set it for a hearing, but
No.
I'm looking at Rachel over there because we probably shouldn't.
I would wait to have your resolution ready to do.
Bingo, that's kind of, that makes it simple. Let me do that.
What do you have there, something that can be printed out that says that they're willing to pay
Yeah,
this?
it's just an email. I'll
Okay.
print that out.
All right.
You don't want to put it out for public bid to see if somebody else would like it, pay higher?
I want the cemetery board to have it personally. I think it's the best thing for the community as a whole.
Yeah.
We've got other people interested in bidding on it.
Just my opinion.
I've said this through the whole time, between the cemetery and the gal that lives next door, that I think it's only right that we offer it to them entities. They've put up with it. I don't want it to go back the way it was. But we own it, so we would have that option. But I'm definitely would want the cemetery or the gal next door, because she's interested also.
Yeah, she is interested.
Yeah.
But the cemetery and her, have worked it out, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
They
so,
worked it out,
Mhm.
so they're gonna share it or whatever they're gonna do.
so I guess I said I would want this.
We're gonna let the cemetery purchase it and then they're gonna divvy it up however they see fit.
Question for you, Erin. So she has an offer on it. The cemetery board has contacted Cindy in regards to the offer. So there's a consensus of the board in regards to the direction that the board wants to do it, as just a verbal thing. Do we do a discussion if possible? Do we do action on that? So the board decides if they want to do that, or do we do this at the public hearing? That's when the board says, yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
That's what I would prefer to do, and I think Rachel's kind of, because Rachel's got a lot, she sometimes thinks more than I do about some of these things. I think it would be best to probably wait, I prepare the paperwork, and then we do it all at one time. Rachel, I think is nodding yes.
I think it's fine either way, but I think you definitely want the resolution to set the public hearing.
Okay.
No, that's the correct way of doing it, yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it correctly.
Yep.
I'll put it together. I mean, I realize I'm not being presumptive, because I don't know what's gonna happen, nobody's voted on it, but I can prepare the paperwork a certain way, and
That's kind of why I asked. I
Yeah.
wasn't really sure.
So-
I can do that.
Okay.
Will you have it ready for next week?
I
Or
think so,
two.
yeah, no, I think that should be fine, Sydney.
Okay, so
I've
next
already
week.
got some stuff pulled out, and so, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We'll wait for the resolution next week. After that, discussion on meal reimbursement. Got brought up last week.
Yeah, that's pretty insignificant compared to what we've been talking about, so I'm gonna make this quick. People got other things to do. I'm working with a 20-year-old policy that says our breakfast is $5, our lunch is $6, and our dinners are $9. My proposal is to move that to 15, 16, and 19, essentially add $10 to the fee with receipts. In reality, I'm paying it now anyway, but this just cleans that up. So if the board would agree with me on that, I'm gonna update that policy and move forward, so. And I'll entertain any other ideas. If you want to give me more, that'd be great too.
I would be willing to look at this when it comes closer to budget time in regards to when we actually start crunching numbers for our budget, where I'm at with it.
Yeah, Rachel said that in the email that's when we normally do it, but we didn't.
So,
We
you
haven't looked at it.
guys said in January, the first meeting, what we pay, Mary, correct me, I think it kind of goes, everyone has filed it except Greg. We filed what you said at that first meeting, but this is Greg's policy.
Yeah, so this is separate from my office.
And I don't think you guys can tell him now.
Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Sorry.
So this is built.
Essentially, I could do it without your guys'
This is
okay,
built into your budget.
but yeah, it's there. I'm just wanting you guys' thoughts on it. Because in reality, it's getting paid out anyway.
Yeah.
It just cleans it up. And I didn't want to do it without it, and let you guys know.
Okay, so this we can do.
I will have a comment then, okay?
Sure.
So, county employees are paid well, and some are paid real well. And, this is benefits. I'm not really opposed to raising it somewhat, but also it's still taxpayer money, and if somebody needs to buy a hamburger, they should maybe be able to afford the extra, other than the $6, the extra amount of the hamburger, because they get paid quite well.
Okay, anybody else's opinion? My opinion is they shouldn't have to buy their meals when they go to training that I'm sending them to. It benefits the county. That's where I'm coming from, Jim, but thank you for your thoughts. And I don't disagree. They are paid very well, and we appreciate that.
We all are. I'm not just picking on you, we all are.
So.
Yeah.
I checked with the county social service and they're 12, 15, and 29, so they're pretty in the ballpark. No, I agree. If they sign up for training, they should be covered.
I guess I agree with you, Greg. I think you're reasonable. This is from 03, you know, that's.
Yeah, and it certainly
21 years
isn't
ago.
just something that I approve. I mean, they have to have receipts to support it.
Correct.
I
They don't
think
get
their
16 if
employee
they're
law,
on state 11.
if you require someone to leave the county for training, I think expenses have to be paid for by the work. Is how it's covered. If the employee X has to go somewhere outside and spend the night, then their supper is covered, breakfast is covered. If, because it's not on their cost, they're required to go to that training, and it has to be on to the employee. It has to be on the employer then to cover the cost. Is the way I was always informed under Iowa workforce, something of that nature. If you require an employee to go somewhere for training, then we have to cover all the expenses.
Okay, that's a good
If they're
point.
going on their own, like they're volunteer firefighter going to some training that's not outside the job, that's a whole different ballgame. But if I require employee X to go to this training, then it's my responsibility to cover his cost, his or her cost at those things.
Okay.
The way, if I'm not mistaken, I believe how it's going.
And this is overnight. Specifies for overnight, so they're going to the training, spending the night. And yeah.
I'd have to look. That's the short answer. I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure, I remember we just had a discussion on it at the last ISAC with conservation on HR stuff, and that was brought up that way with the attorney they had present, with the, if you're
And then-
forcing this individual to go, then you have to cover their costs.
Certainly could be, and it certainly could, I mean, I'll look. Because there might be a difference between state and private too, you know, I mean, so, but I don't know the answer. I think I did one time, but.
Got my blessings.
Yep, that's all I have.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Good. Discussion on donation to paint sign. I was approached by a person from St. Ansgar on the chamber that arrow, number 9, shortcut to 218 and St. Ansgar is getting, not looking very well, and the 2 lights, one, the globe's broke, and the other one, it's out of, but, what was that, 2009?
Yeah.
2009, the county donated $400 to get it painted. And Mike reached out to Marsh Painting to see if they, because they did it last, and see if they would be interested. Did they get back with it?
I haven't heard back to him. I'm gonna get hold of him again, but she said that he would give me a quote, so.
The city chamber said they'd cover the cost of the paint if we would cover the labor.
So we're covering the majority of it?
Don't know
I
yet.
don't know what the labor is.
Don't know.
Okay.
I've said, wait, I gotta get a quote. I contacted another painter and they're not interested, so I don't know. It's pretty limited on, I don't know.
We'll have to table this until we get a quote.
Yeah. I mean, I thought I'd have it by now, but
And then they thought they'd put 2 LED lights up rather than halogen ones that are there now. We just put it on for discussion now for, so we find out more.
and then we'll see what the chamber will do, you know, get a total cost.
I'd be curious as far as what percentage we're comfortable doing of it. I mean, are we paying the majority of it or are we just helping out with, I'd be curious on that.
You know,
We'll have to wait till we see what the quote is for the labor for the painting, because the paint's covered.
Yeah.
So that's, wait till we hear from him, I guess.
yeah, I told him material and labor that, you know, broke down so we can see what.
Rachel, you probably don't know now, but I would also be curious where we're at with our contributions line item as far as if we, it seems like it was 160,000 we had in that, I thought. And if, where we're at with, yes, like $400 or whatever, it's not gonna be a lot, but,
I can show you guys now.
just be curious where we're at with that, as far as what's already come out of that.
Well, I would think this could come out of local option too. I mean, it's something to benefit the county, identifying a town. I would think.
So we'll wait to see what we get with cost.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, call them again and to get something.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Approve recorder's monthly report for September. We got, like total amount paid to county is $6,549.91.
I'll move to make that motion.
Motion, is there a second?
1 second.
Any other discussion?
Roll call, Pat,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Cindy.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Alright, very good. Items of note, meetings attended.
I had nothing.
None.
I don't go to conservation board meeting, but I covered that, so.
I had nothing this week.
I had nothing.
All right, any public comments?
Nothing.
Well, I think it would probably behoove you to be in contact with the other counties that are dealing with this. No, not to give up on an ordinance idea completely, but talk to other counties, some that have, some that haven't. How can we band together to best protect your constituents? As far as I know, this part of the Summit project has not been granted eminent domain yet. I think the lawsuit that went before the Supreme Court may have been in the part where it was.
It hadn't been at the time.
But it hadn't been at the time that now it is. But I would just encourage you to continue looking out for the interest of your constituents because, you know, you're the closest to the ground. And I know you keep referring to Summit says they're gonna, you know, Summit's job is to, you know, they got a different job than your job. And you can listen to what they have to say, but always take it a little bit with a grain of salt. That's not the person that's actually going out. And sometimes the people that go out and are doing the surveys aren't exactly doing what maybe Summit thinks they're doing. We don't know. You gotta listen to the people on the ground that are being contacted by Summit and in other counties. If you listen to the experience of people in other counties, it hasn't always been real pleasant. So your job is to look out for your constituents.
Well, I think I've said that. You're looking at me. I have. I got an open mind and I'm listening to all
For all you
sides.
guys.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I totally get it.
But I was
gonna say, I went to the Supreme Court hearing Tuesday night. And one of the things that was brought up was that they wanted Summit to make sure they were doing minimally invasive surveys. Like what they did in South Dakota was boring these huge holes and driving across corn that was, 2 feet high. And so it was things like that that have created this mistrust of Summit. So the request was to do minimally invasive surveys, meaning a walk-on or a drone inspection or soil samples without boring with a big bore machine and driving heavy equipment. So that's just, another piece it's hard to trust when you know they've already broken the rules other places.
Very good. Any other comments? None? We'll adjourn at 10:12.
Thanks for letting me start that. Good job getting that.
Well done, yeah.